New exclusive videos are waiting for you on Boosty. You can support me and follow the link to subscribe to Boosty. Enjoy watching. Description: How many obstacles does Naruko Uzumaki need to overcome to become happy? And will she cope? Or maybe it's better to give up. Part 4. This scary word tests. The only thing scarier is exams. Fortunately, Naruto only had another midterm test, but he had to pass it with the highest score. Therefore, the living room of the small house was filled with textbooks, scrolls with drawings, rewritten notes, and calculations on some formula. Naruto was completely immersed in the textbook. Basics of Espionage. As if in a fascinating novel. Naruto, are you home? The girl looked up, smiled at the guest. Shursui, are you back already? How was the mission? She got up, went to the kitchen. Come in, do you want to eat? I won't refuse. The Uchiha carefully took off his shoes. I'm coming in. A portion of casserole of potatoes, tomatoes, and chicken, with a thick layer of processed cheese on top, was already warming up on the stove. Naruto insisted on lighter meat. Sasuke, who practically settled in his brother's house, on a large number of his beloved tomatoes. And Itachi demanded dango as moral compensation. The sweet balls were already waiting for him, covered with a napkin. Itachi is not home yet, the girl smiled, setting out the plates. Shursui noisily inhaled the appetizing smell, folded his hands, thanking for the food, and began to actively sweep away the casserole. At Naruto's house, it was possible not to follow the etiquette so strictly. For the girl, the main thing was comfort and warmth. I did not come to him, but to you. After recovery, Shursui dropped in on his friend for a light. Word for word, gradually he and Naruto became friends. Shursui turned out to be an intelligent, well-read conversationalist, although a bit of an idealist. Naruto, Shursui looked around carefully. The girl nodded and activated the pre-installed barrier seals against eavesdropping. Somehow it turned out that all the important issues in their house were decided not in the hall, not in the bedroom, or in the garden, but in the kitchen. Uchiha Sr. and Uchiha Jr. explained this with the traditional chuckle by the fact that his wife and sister cooks amazingly. It's impossible to tear yourself away. Tell me, what do you know about our clan's politics? Shursui sipped his green tea. Naruto twirled a cup of red tea in her hands. It's not that she wasn't aware of it at all. Slips of the tongue, rumors, careless words, scraps of conversations allowed the girl to form her own opinion. But no one had deliberately dedicated her to it. And if Shursui came to check on the orders of the elders of the clan or Itachi's father? It depends on what you mean, she answered vaguely. Shursui chuckled. I came to you not because you're an Uchiha, but because you're my friend's wife. I'm sure you'll be on his side in any situation. He raised an eyebrow. Naruto nodded. Even under the second Hokage, the Uchiha clan's territories were moved outside of Konoha. Over time, our isolation only increased. And the clan decided to change it, with radical methods. Itachi spies on the clan on orders from the Hokage, the elders, and Danzo. And I keep an eye on Itachi. And I feel that Danzo will soon begin to act. Naruto bit her lip. Why did you come to me? I never doubted Itachi before. He was loyal to the village and to his brother, for whose safety Konoha's stability was needed. After all, Sasuke knows no other home than the Leaf. But gradually I began to notice that some of that loyalty had transferred to you. Understand, Naruto, I didn't know you at all then and didn't know what to expect from a girl who agreed to marry the clan's heir out of pure calculation. It's one thing to live with a fictitious, formal wife imposed on you by the head of the clan, and quite another to love. Uchiha love is possessive loyalty and devotion, there's no other way to put it. The girl looked seriously at Shursui. And she saw echoes of past worries for her best friend, anxiety for his fate in his black eyes. I agreed to get married because the contract left me no other choice. A year earlier, a year later, what difference does it make? I don't have a habit of running away from obligations, even if they were prescribed by dead parents. I was also counting on a formal marriage. I don't know how it happened, but now. I don't love Itachi, too little time has passed for love. but I value and respect him as a person. And I really like him as a guy. Itachi is certainly a talented shinobi, a brilliant warrior and strategist, but he has not yet reached the main stage of our Dojutsu Mangekyo Sharingan, a complex pattern, an interweaving of lines and angles swirled in Shursue's eyes. And I want us to help Itachi move on to the next level together. He might need it. How so? Naruto felt extremely uncomfortable, starting something behind her husband's back, risking the trust that had been so hard won. But her intuition screamed that Itachi shouldn't know anything, otherwise he would be decisively against their idea. To awaken Mangekyo, you need the death of a loved one. The pain that tears through the brain improves our genome, transfers it to a completely new level. Gives more opportunities. In our clan, they killed parents, brothers, and sisters in order to master this power. And did it work? Uchiha asked skeptically. If this were really the case, the Uchiha clan would have exterminated itself long ago to a small number of people. Firstly, due to the large number of incestuous marriages, the clan gradually degenerated and weakened. Not everyone received even the first 3 levels of the Sharingan. Secondly, not everyone decided to go this way. They didn't want to risk it. But the number of fighters with dojutsu that the clan has now is more than enough for active military action. Do you want to kill someone in front of Itachi so that he can get this Mangekyo? I warn you right away, I won't let anyone hurt Sasuke. I'm not talking about Sasuke. Itachi and I have been friends for too long and I hope he values me as much as I value him, Shursuke smiled. Naruto's eyes widened. To commit suicide in front of a friend, so that the pain of his loss would awaken the dormant genome. Wait, there must be another way, Datebao. She jumped up and rushed around the kitchen. You mustn't die! Naruto, no! She turned around, narrowing her eyes. Give me time. I'll rummage through the archives. They won't let you in there. I know who to turn to. Naruto, Shursuke tried to convince her, we have no other choice. My main technique is Kodo Amatsukami. I don't want it to fall into the wrong hands. The girl slapped her palms on the table, cutting her comrade off mid-sentence. The word impossible doesn't exist in my vocabulary. If there's even one chance for a different outcome, I'll find it. Just give me a couple of days to learn more about this advanced dojutsu of yours. I'll think of something. Shursuke looked at the former Uzumaki thoughtfully and appraisingly. Do you care about me that much or about my husband? She nodded. Your death could reflect badly on him. Understood. The shinobi stood up. We have some time. Only the Hokage knows about Kodo Amatsukami. I think it will all start when he gives the order to use it against the clan. I'll tell you when the order comes. Okay. Thank you. Don't say a word to Itachi, he'll be unhappy. And that's putting it mildly, the girl sighed. Shursuke left, and she was still sitting on a chair in the kitchen and looking out the window. Something was brewing, preparing. The atmosphere in the Uchiha clan quarter became even more tense. Mikoto, without saying a word, encouraged Sasuke to constantly be outside the house. The others looked at Naruto with undisguised assessment, as if he were a weapon. Shursuke was right, Mangekyo was Itachi's excellent chance for survival. So they should get it. But it was hard to believe that death was the only way. Naruto put the dishes away and sent a few notes to her friends. She would need help. She no longer felt like studying. Itachi returned late in the evening, when Naruto finally forced herself to sit down with her textbooks. It was ridiculous to try to solve all the problems at once, she had to deal with them as they came. The answers from her friends came, they promised to help her. Tomorrow morning she would do this, but for now she could not fall behind in her main work studying, so as not to let down the clan to which she now belonged. Her husband suddenly appeared behind her, abruptly hugged her and pressed her to himself, tightly, until her ribs hurt, buried his face in her neck. This is how little children try to hide from all their problems. Itachi? I'm sorry, he breathed out. I'm sorry for dragging you into all this, Naru. The girl rubbed her cheek against the cool, smooth strands. And put up a barrier. Itachi? Uchiha slightly loosened his grip, but did not let go of the embrace. My clan has always been distinguished by exorbitant ambitions and a thirst for power. Perhaps that is why we were never trusted. After the death of the first Hokage, the second moved the clan territories outside of Konoha, thereby isolating us from influence on social and political life. This affected people's attitudes towards the Uchiha. The clan is too proud to fight rumors, and they spread. The Uchiha began to be feared and hated. While Kagami Uchiha, Shursui's father, was alive, he managed to reconcile the opposing sides. I am sure he could have achieved the whitewashing of our reputation peacefully. But he disappeared on a mission. And after the Fox's attack, things only got worse, because the Kyuubi was controlled by the Sharingan. The clan's fighters were not even allowed near the Nine Tails, so that we would not subjugate it, but now for ourselves. And not use it for our own purposes. Therefore, the clan decided on a coup. They had been preparing it for many years, accumulating strength. A coup would mean more than just a change of power. While Konoha, busy with internal strife, would deal with its own problems, the other villages would be able to attack us. Kumo had been licking its chops at the Byakugan for a long time, Suna had been stealing our medics for a long time, since their strengths were only in poisons and antidotes, and ordinary techniques were practically inaccessible to them. The stone would gladly win back part of our alcohol business. All this would happen if there was a coup. Not only the shinobi would suffer, but also ordinary civilians, residents. Naruto listened to her husband's quiet voice, and she herself wanted to hide in it, dissolve, so as not to see, not to know the scale of the problem. She felt Itachi's steady heartbeat with her back and concentrated only on him. And his voice. It was not my father who initiated our union, but I demanded the fulfillment of the marriage contract. I hoped that the Jinchuriki in the clan would moderate their ambitions and thirst for power a little. But I was wrong. The approximate dates for the coup have already been set, we have no time at all. And some are suggesting releasing the fox and subjugating him with the Sharingan to use him as a weapon. Forgive me, Naru, for dragging you in. A voice saturated with bitterness filled the room. The Kyuubi chakra flared with rage. The fox did not hate absolutely all Uchiha, only some of their representatives. And he treated Itachi equally, a little ironically. But the demon really didn't like it when people talked about him as a mindless weapon. Itachi, Naruto turned around and hugged her husband around the neck. Everything will be fine, everything will work out, you'll see. We'll think of something. For now, we still have time. Naru, wide palms grabbed the girl's face, stroking her tender cheeks with their thumbs. More than anything in the world, I worry about you and Sasuke. My parents and cousins, the rest of my clanmates are adults, they understand the risk they are taking. But you. Uchiha leaned her forehead against her husband's forehead and closed her eyes. She needed to somehow ease her husband's condition. He shouldn't bear everything alone. After all, they were family. Itachi shouldn't know about the Mangekyo Sharingan, otherwise he would be prepared for anything and wouldn't be able to awaken the dojutsu. And he needed strength now more than ever. But to hint at anything else, Itachi, you're a genius, right? She asked cheerfully. I'm not so sure anymore. Her husband smiled bitterly. A genius, the girl nodded. Then tell me, what is Kodo Amatsukami? And she was pleased to see how Itachi's eyes widened, how his breathing became ragged for a moment. We can handle it, she whispered, because we are not alone. And because we are together. She showed their joined hands, fingers intertwined until the skin was white. Itachi smiled weakly in response. The main archive of Konoha was located in a rather unremarkable building, which ordinary people did not pay attention to. Enhanced security patrolled the area around the clock, and barrier and security seals were put by the Uzumaki back when they lived in the village. On the first floor there were public documents. They could be taken by Jonin and even Chunin with special access. But the real valuable scrolls were kept on the lower floors, in the basement, where only a few had access, including the Hokage, the elders, and the head of Root. Enko met Naruto near the building. Why do you need this? The girl asked curiously. She led her inside, simply showing her ID at the entrance. As an assistant to the chief executioner of Konoha, doors were opened to her everywhere. A short "She is with me" made Naruto invisible. For personal use, the former Uzumaki smiled, looking around with interest. She had not appeared in this section of the archive yet. It was not only the tall shelves with ancient scrolls that were striking, but also the seals carved on the walls and cabinets. They prevented the appearance of dust and mold that could damage the paper. They maintained a certain temperature, humidity, and light in the room. Thanks to them, the wood of the cabinets did not crack or deteriorate. And they only needed to be updated once a year, refilling them with a certain type of chakra. Household fuin of the highest class. Naruto had just studied this section before marriage, but much was missing. There were gaps in her knowledge. If she could quickly find the information she needed, she would be able to look into the Uzumaki and their creativity. The protective seals regulated the use of techniques in the archive, allowing only a certain level of chakra surge. Naruto took a closer look. Yes, there would be enough for shadow clones, but she would have to do them one at a time so as not to disturb the alarm. Soon 50 blondes scattered throughout the room in search of information about the Uchiha. At least tell me what exactly you are looking for. Perhaps I can help. Anko comfortably settled down on a visitor's chair and devoured the dango she had brought with her. The seals did not yet know how to recognize food. Naruto bit her lip, looking at her friend. It was extremely difficult for her to cope alone. She had no idea where and what to look for. Advice would come in handy, but could you trust anyone? Anko was far from a stupid girl. She would be able to draw the right conclusions. As long as you are not going to betray Konoha, I do not care what you are looking for, the Kunoichi smiled. Dual morality in all its glory. Training with Orochimaru did not go unnoticed. Anko allowed any willfulness, but within clearly established boundaries. She will remain silent until Naruto appears in the bingo book. I need any information on the Uchiha. Preferably as clear as possible. Anko's face darkened. She swallowed a particularly large piece of dango and waved her hand towards an inconspicuous shelf painted dark blue. One of the clones darted there. The woman herself sat down closer and beckoned her friend. When Orochimaru was still in the village, he became interested in the training of your then not yet husband Itachi Uchiha. I don't know what he was planning, but he became obsessed with the idea of the Sharingan. He looked for any mention of the dojutsu, its appearance, evolution, and so on. I often accompanied him. I don't think the former teacher even noticed my presence, since the work absorbed him completely. He was so carried away that he could not eat or drink for a week. That's why I know that the most mentions of the Uchiha are in the scrolls of the second Hokage. I understand. Thank you, Anko, Naruto nodded. You can only leave here with me, so I'll wait here. Will there be enough sweets? The girl chuckled, taking the scrolls from the clone. Anko stuck out her tongue. Her gesture was repeated by 2 snakes, sticking out of her sleeves. Total, the score was 3-1, in favor of Mitarashi Anko. Naruto sat down at a small table, lightly touching the scrolls. They were written by the second Hokage, Tobirama Senju. It was necessary to make one's way through the colorful sayings, full of metaphors and epithets, typical of that time, as if through a dense forest. Although Tobirama was a first-class warrior, first of all he was the heir to a great clan. This meant the appropriate upbringing. And Naruto had to deal with the consequences of this upbringing. For many years, Senju and Uchiha waged a bloody war. Tobirama watched as his friends and relatives died. He buried one of his brothers, and with his friendship Madara took away another, an older, revered one. Envy and discontent were heard in every word he said. And yet he came to terms with this friendship. The second always remained a warrior, and even after the truce he did not trust the Uchiha. Because he understood the level of their power, and the reasons for its appearance better than anyone else. Even in an inactive state, the Sharingan gave its bearer an advantage. The girl had seen this more than once in the example of Sasuke, who could follow the fast movements of the sword or deflect more senbons than his peers. Even throwing kunai was easy for him. The second also saw this, watching the Uchiha children. What he proposed outraged Naruto to the depths of his soul. Move the territory outside of Konoha, limit their rights, and put them under constant control. Like wild, dangerous animals. Tobirama agreed that in the event of a war, the Sharingan could be an unrivaled ally, but he also believed that the Uchiha did not understand the very word, peace, that they were born and lived only for battles. And Madara confirmed his worst fears when he incited the clan to another rebellion in order to take their rightful place in the village. The clan refused to support him, and Madara left. But Tobirama remembered his attempt. While Hashirama was alive, he could do nothing about the dangerous clan. But as soon as he became Hokage instead of his brother, the clan's territory was moved, some of its rights were curtailed. Then Tobirama died on a mission and did not have time to finish his undertakings regarding the Uchiha. Despite everything, he could not help but respect them. Not just for their strength, but also for their ability to use it, for their fortitude and courage, for their ability to analyze and create almost foolproof combinations in a few moves. Like Itachi. It seemed to Naruto that her husband was able to think through his and others' actions several years in advance, to calculate probable events. The strength of the Uchiha is not that they do not know how to love. There is no one in the world who understands love better than the Uchiha. There is no one in the world who could love more than the representatives of this clan. Their strength lies in the collapse of the most important feeling in their lives. At the moment when the brain rides in agony on the ruins of hopes and a broken heart, the perfect Sharingan is born. So, the collapse of hopes, and not just love. Naruto rubbed her forehead. Her head ached terribly, as if Senju and Uchiha had settled in it, and were now actively dividing the territory. She still needed to somehow get home, train Sasuke, talk to Shisui, prepare his death, avoid Itachi's persistent and specific questions so as not to lie to him once again. The plans were grandiose, and, as her heart told her, there was less and less time left to implement them. In general, the plan was already there, it only remained to clarify the details and put it into action. The clones dispersed, bringing down an avalanche of information on the found Fuinjutsu. As soon as Naruto sat down with the second scrolls, she sent copies to search for everything on Uzumaki. The find exceeded all expectations, but she would think about it a little later, when the problem with the Uchiha was solved. Naruto woke up Anko, who had dozed off from boredom. "Thanks, I'll have dango." "Definitely." The woman winked and walked her friend upstairs, where they parted. Naruto glanced at her watch. There was only half an hour left until Sasuke graduated from the academy, which meant that the conversation with Shisui was postponed. Although, you can kill two birds with one stone. Naruto created a clone, which quickly galloped towards the house. Itachi had a day off, he was just catching up on sleep, so let him take care of his brother. Otherwise, Sasuke already missed him, he would soon forget what the Elder One looked like. The bell rang, a noisy crowd of children poured out into the street. Sasuke came out sedately after everyone else. Girls were squealing excitedly around him. Naruto giggled, her mood was rising right before her eyes. It turned out that her little brother was very popular. It was understandable why he winced every time the academy was mentioned, as if he had a toothache. Naruto always met him a few houses away, so she didn't see all the excitement. "Save me!" Sasuke unmistakably singled out his mentor's henge. "Sasuke-kun!" Two girls ran up to them, a blonde from the Yamanaka clan and a stranger with a large forehead and bright pink hair. "Is this your friend?" Almost hostilely. Naruto chuckled. Well, she's afraid. Especially after meeting Marino Ibiki. The illusion today depicted a short, brown-eyed girl of about 15 with luscious curves. Since she was going to appear in front of the entire academy, Naruto decided to make sure that her brother wouldn't have to be ashamed of her. And so that no one would encounter her in the future. "She's my girlfriend!" Sasuke snapped, grabbed his sister by the hand and dragged her away. There was a stunned silence behind her. "You know," Naruto said thoughtfully, not pulling her hand away as they walked the next block, "many younger brothers wear old clothes from their older brothers. Do you think that when Itachi gets tired of me, you will be allowed to marry me?" Sasuke froze, choked, and slowly turned to Naruto. His face was filling with a juicy tomato shade. The girl took off her henge, shook her golden braid. So what, Datebao? She asked with curiosity, smiling. You. Naruto! Sasuke screamed and rushed after his sister, who was running away with laughter. She brought the boy to their usual training place, where she handed him over to her sleepy husband, and ran away with a clear conscience. She was about to meet Shisui. For the past few days, Naruto felt like there was a giant clock hanging above her head, counting down the time of peace that remained. And with each turn, the hands sped up. The tension never let up for a second, even at night she couldn't rest. And she woke up beaten and exhausted. It was hard to believe that everything would end well. That terrible calm before the storm had arrived. The Uchiha clan was inactive, they lived, worked, and pretended that everything was fine. But Naruto already knew from Shisui about the secret meetings in the clan shrine, where they discussed the strategy of the coming war. Itachi disappeared on missions that Danzo threw at him. And at night, lying in an empty bed, Naruto wanted to howl, because there was nowhere to hide from her own worries. The last thing she wanted in the world was to choose between the village and her family, but she understood that despite the good attitude towards her as the daughter of the fourth and a Jinchuriki, the favor of the ruling elite was not endless. And it did not extend to the Uchiha clan. If the uprising did break out, she would have to fight on only one side. And she did not know when the first outbreak would occur. What a blessing that Sasuke did not notice anything. His father hardly communicated with him, and the other elders tried to pretend that nothing was happening. He trained carefree, studied, ran away from the girls who had set themselves the goal of stealing the academy's hottest boy from their girlfriend. Naruto laughed until she cried when she listened to his emotional complaints. The girl studied herself, worked part-time for the master, and prepared poisons, antidotes, and medicines for future use, the most complex, the most effective. The clock above her head continued to count down. Naruto, Itachi entered the house late in the evening. I will need your help. Of course, the girl put aside the book she was reading and straightened her dress. What do you need to do? Shisui urgently arranged a meeting. The guy darkened. Will you join me? I know he trusts you completely. Okay. Uchiha changed into a pair of street shoes, and together they flew out of the house. Itachi seemed exhausted, tired. There were shadows under his eyes, and the lines near his nose became even deeper and clearer. His whole face was sharpened from constant worry, and the edge of his vest was soaked with blood. And Naruto partly felt guilty for what he would have to go through now. Today, Shisui lost his right eye in a fight with Danzo, but managed to save the other one and escape. And he gave the go-ahead to his friend to get ready to implement their plan. Probably those people were right who said that Naruto took after her father with her calm character and ability to analyze. But she also got a lot from her mother, in particular, a love of risk. The plan she had made could fail with just one imprecise move, but they had no other choice. They went out to the high bank of the river, where Shisui was already waiting for them with a bloody face. The empty eye socket with red tears looked scary. Naruto stayed behind, under a tree, carefully scanning the surrounding area. She didn't want Danzo's assistance, or the Hokage to interfere with them now. She never forgot herself, she didn't live in the illusion that the village's top brass loved her. Respected her perhaps, valued her for her strength, yes, valued her as a weapon definitely. But she would be easily sacrificed if necessary. Like now. If the Uchiha clan rebelled, Naruto could be accused of involvement in it, have her biju confiscated, and she herself killed. Or even worse, forced to endlessly give birth to combat units for the root. The Uzumaki were famous for their endurance, survivability, and huge reserves of chakra. In addition, they strengthened the improved genome in the next generation. Danzo would not miss such a chance to strengthen his army. Naruto understood all this perfectly well and was not going to give up. Her family was Itachi and Sasuke, albeit small, but what she had. And she would not let anyone hurt her. No one! Shisui said something to Itachi, he cried, and then took out his eyeball and held it out in his fist to his friend. Itachi accepted, and at the same moment Shursui took a step back, towards the cliff, and fell into the deep, fast waters of the river. The blind man had no chance to get out of them. Itachi fell to his knees, clutching his head. Naruto ran up, hugged him, wanting with all her might to share the pain that was now literally exploding every cell of her husband's brain. "Everything is fine, it's over," she whispered randomly, stroking his head. Itachi hugged her, not paying attention to the fact that he was staining his house dress with someone else's blood. He cried scarlet tears, and his pain went away with them. And Mangekyo's Sharingan was born in his eyes. Naruto did not know how long they sat like that, listening to the noise of the river and the chirping of grasshoppers. Itachi practically lay on her chest, listening to the beating of her heart, and thoughtlessly looked into the distance. "I saw that you were agreeing on something with Shursui," he began to speak quietly. "Tell me, did you know that he was going to do this?" He raised his eyes with a black and scarlet pattern. Yes, Naruto did not flinch, although she wanted to run away, hide, or, like a woman, burst into tears and ask for forgiveness. But she was a shinobi and had to learn to take responsibility for her actions. "Why?" Naruto plunged into the dark pools, answered decisively and firmly. "Because I will do everything so that no one hurts my family." The girl got up and went to the cliff. Once again scanned the area for 50 meters around. No one. She tensed up, fired at 100 meters. Empty. That was good. Perhaps they were lucky. The ground under her soul crumbled into small crumbles. Strong arms grabbed her waist. Itachi pressed himself against her from behind. His heart was pounding like crazy. "Don't you dare!" he whispered, knocking his breath out. Naruto looked at her husband in surprise and was amazed. Fear was swimming in his eyes, real, genuine fear, which she had not yet managed to achieve from the Uchiha. Was she really that dear to him? "I deceived you," she noted. "I hid the truth," helped Shursui. "And all this time I was tormented by guilt." Itachi leaned his forehead against hers. "I will not let you go. Never. I will have to." Naruto moved away. "We still need to pull Shursui out." And she jumped down. A little later, Itachi followed her. Below, in the rock, there was a small cave. Previously, there was just a niche, but Naruto deepened it with the help of clones and camouflaged it. Then she created the necessary illusory seals and cut them right above the entrance. Shursui spent the rest of the time practicing how to properly fall from the rock and get into the cave with the help of a fishing line, immediately activating the seals. And all this in a few seconds with his eyes closed. The seals created the appearance of a small splash from an object falling into the water. A weak genjutsu, Naruto was not capable of more, and Shursui's chakra was too easy to detect, so it was not used. If Itachi had lingered at the edge of the cliff a little longer, he would have noticed that the splashes continued with a break of half a minute. And so on until the chakra embedded in the seal was exhausted. Naruto thanked the scroll found in the archive, belonging to Uzumaki. Only with its help it was possible to create the seals. The rest was a matter of technique. Shursui wrote a suicide note, left it at home when Danzo stole one of his eyes, sent Itachi a request for a meeting, and carefully played out the performance. Now he was lying in a cave with a broken arm. In the real situation, things went a little differently than in training, and he did not have time to regroup in time. However, the matter was fixable. Naruto immediately correctly displaced the bones and began treatment. "What will you do next?" Itachi stood at the entrance and watched the area. His gaze did not promise anything good for the former Uzumaki when they were left alone at home. "Danzo only got one eye, so it is better for me to stay dead." "Blind Uchiha," he chuckled sadly. "What genetic material for experiments. My death is unlikely to stop Fugaku-san from a coup. So, soon you will receive an order to destroy the conspirators." All three of them fell silent sullenly. The conspirators, that is almost all the people of the clan. "I will try to bargain for the lives of Naruto and Sasuke," Itachi said decisively. "The master contacted his people. They will help you move to a safe place." Naruto finished the bandage. Shursui's empty eye sockets were now covered by an even white stripe. Their fortification is near the grass. You will live with them for some time. Then we will see. Can they be trusted? Itachi raised an eyebrow. Yes. They are the master's former students, the girl nodded. One of them is Uzumaki, a good censor. He will live with us. A woman with scarlet hair entered the cave. We are always happy to fulfill the master's request. Besides, we were paid well. She adjusted her glasses. And I'm not an idiot to quarrel with the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi. Amazing sensory abilities, Keiko. Naruto shook the woman's hand with a smile. They had already met when Keiko Uzumaki came to the master last time. They did not become friends, but recognized each other as worthy rivals. Does your daughter have the same? Karen can also heal, the woman chuckled. True, in a rather specific way. Probably the influence of the poison I've drunk throughout my life. Naruto, we need to hurry. The master can't draw attention to the paths, and there's a raid planned on the village next to us in 2 months. We should be there by then. I understand. Now she thrust several scrolls at the woman. Here's the money and the mixtures you asked for. I also added some food from myself for the first time. Keiko turned sharply, her eyes flashing. Come on, you can be a kitty, boy. She threw a henge over Shursui and easily pulled him out of the shelter. Hurry, 3 people with chakra very similar to his are heading here, she nodded towards Itachi. The distance is 500 meters. See you later. They scattered. Keiko and her companion rushed towards the master and the paths, Naruto and Itachi towards a small pond, into which they threw themselves straight in their clothes. Maybe the young people were on a date? No one came for them, which means Shursui's note had already been found, but no traces were found. Itachi pulled off his vest. Naruto, shaking like a mouse, pulled out several scrolls from the seal on her wrist, put her ANBU uniform and sword there, so that it would look more like a date. They lit a fire and sat down, leaning against each other. The perfect alibi. 500 meters, Itachi quietly noted, looking around the area. That's the case when all of Uzumaki's considerable reserves go to innate abilities. Why do you think she started learning poisons? Itachi chuckled, hugging his wife. If I told you, nothing would have happened, the former Uzumaki hastened to justify herself. In response, she was lightly kissed on the lips. A hot wave of blood rushed to her cheeks and ears. Progress 6 months of marriage and only now the first kiss. Yes, I think by the age of 20 we will get to children. Itachi kissed her again. It sounded very optimistic. Hello, Iruka-sensei. The girl smiled at the Chunin walking past. He glared at her and walked past proudly. The Uchiha just shrugged. Of course, he could be understood. His parents died during the fox's attack. But what does Naruto herself have to do with it? After marrying the Uchiha, she turned into a demon squared. Now many people looked away so that the eyes blazing with the fire of hell would not devour their souls. What stupidity! But everyone believed. And you can't convince everyone. She came to the academy to take tests and get a list of topics for the next few months. She specially chose the time after classes ended so as not to upset anyone. But she still ran into her brother's homeroom teacher. Mom, Naruto, don't pay attention. Kakashi landed next to him with his invariable orange book. Iruka-sensei is a good teacher. I know, he teaches Sasuke. The girl nodded. How are you doing, Kakashi-san? Oh, Pakken complained about the bad weather and rheumatism again. The Jonin began to list sadly all the ailments and diseases that his own Niken accused him of. Pakken, a small pug with a very keen sense of smell, could be a real bore when he did not want to work. Naruto, sister, Sasuke ran up to them, resting his hands on his knees, gasping for breath. There, and I-san, Kakashi-san, please forgive me. Naruto grabbed a stack of books and a folder with assignments more comfortably, grabbed Sasuke's hand and shunned to the house. In the yard, opposite Itachi, stood Fugaku-san, Mikoto-san and 3 people from the police. The employees were actively accusing the genius of the clan of something. He responded with his usual mask, but the girl noticed that her husband was gradually starting to get angry. Sasuke must have understood this from some of his own signs and hurried to call her for help. She was a little late. A short movement, a flashing shadow, and the three, groaning, stretched out on the ground with broken arms. And Itachi straightened up, as if nothing had happened. Only his eyes blazed with the glow of the Sharingan. "What's going on here, Date Bale?" Naruto hurried to intervene. She stepped forward, throwing her braid behind her back, stood next to her husband. "I am accused of Shirsui's death," Itachi said calmly. "He spied on me on the orders of the clan. They think that I figured him out, killed him and staged his suicide, forging the handwriting on the suicide note." Sasuke pressed himself against Naruto's side, looking at his brother with wide eyes. "This can't be. And I-san would never," he whispered with lips whitened from tension. Mikoto and Fugaku were silent, maintaining the calm befitting the head of the clan and his wife. But the woman was worried, anxious. Not so much that everything she said would be true, but that they would find real evidence and be able to prove her son's guilt. She always put her children above any rules and laws. "When did Shisui-san die?" Naruto asked the guys who were slowly getting up. They named the date. "It just can't be." The girl smiled in confusion and spread her hands. "That day, Itachi returned home after a mission, and we went to the lake with him." "Why?" Naruto raised an eyebrow. "Excuse me? We got married this year." Itachi's arm wrapped around the girl's waist. Judging by the shocked faces, none of the Uchiha had ever allowed themselves such a display of emotion before. "And we are trying to improve our relationship. To become a real family." Naruto nodded vigorously. The Uchiha exchanged glances. They clearly didn't expect this. The couple couldn't agree. They didn't warn anyone about their visit. They saw the girl come in the company of the frightened younger heir of the clan. Therefore, everything she says is true. Naruto read all their thoughts and logical chains on their faces. And she hugged Sasuke by the shoulders. "Please forgive us for the unsubstantiated accusations and rude behavior." They bowed first to Itachi and Naruto, then to Fugaku and Mikoto. And left. Itachi turned to his wife. "I think today is the best option, Naruto." Sasuke was very scared. "Of course, as you say, Itachi." The former Uzumaki portrayed an exemplary wife. So exemplary that the fox snorted skeptically inside and muttered something about the cold-bloodedness of the intolerable girl Kushina. Naruto did not go into details. She turned to her husband's parents. "Fugaku-san, Mikoto-san, would you mind if Sasuke spends the night with us tonight? At the same time, we can go over the material from the academy curriculum. What they teach now is not enough for Sasuke." "Okay," Fugaku answered briefly. "Of course, Naruto." Mikoto smiled. The couple majestically left. Naruto watched them go. Now she perhaps understood Itachi, who did not want such a life for himself. The wife of the ideal Uchiha is a heavy burden. "Brother Naruto, it's not true, what they said, is it?" Sasuke ran ahead. "What did they say?" The family headed into the house. Itachi took the books from his wife to put on the shelf, and Naruto went to cook dinner. "That I'm a traitor, since I don't go to meetings and thereby do not support the clan." Itachi sat down at the table opposite Sasuke. At one time, Mikoto offered to make them a traditional low table, but Naruto refused, since childhood she was used to eating while sitting on a chair, and not tormenting her own knees. Itachi supported her in this. He also wanted to remember as little as possible about etiquette at home. "Of course, it's not true, Sasu-chan." The girl put plates of curry in front of them. "Enjoy your meal." "Don't call me Sasu-chan," the younger Uchiha muttered. "Then maybe Sasuke-kun," Naruto drawled familiarly. The Uchiha shuddered and automatically looked around, hunted. Then he came to his senses and blushed. "Is there something I don't know?" Itachi raised an eyebrow. Anxiety briefly gave way to amusement. "It seems our nephews will have pink hair." Naruto sipped her tea. "A very determined person is hunting for our Sasuke." What's her name?" "Sakura Haruno." The Uchiha muttered and admitted. She gives me the creeps. The husband and wife laughed merrily. I'll try to do everything quickly. Itachi girded himself with a belt and took a pouch with Naruto's seals. The girl handed her husband a white ANBU vest. And remember, Uchiha Taro. Yes, his eyes will suit Shursui perfectly. The shinobi nodded. I'll damage the Sharingan of the rest so that no one gets hold of the dojutsu. Naru. He came up and hugged the girl, whose head was bowed. Naruto could pretend in front of anyone, but she always took off her mobile mask in front of him. She, who had never gone on serious missions, found it hard to walk across the block and look at people who were doomed to die, and not be able to warn them. About nothing. I will become a missing nin. First, I will visit Shursui, oversee the eye transplant. Then I will go to Akatsuki. He lifted his wife's face, tucked a lock of hair that had fallen out of her hair behind her ear. So small and so strong. Her actions admired made him proud that this girl was his legal wife. Only him, Uchiha. I don't want them to harm you or Sasuke. And you, tell him about everything, okay? Let him not take revenge, but become stronger in order to revive the clan. And to prevent history from repeating itself, Naruto whispered. She buried her face in her vest. Her shoulders shook. I'm even okay with pink-haired nephews, Itachi tried to joke, although it was not easy for him. But he was a shinobi, he had made his choice. And he would have to live with it. And I will try to bring you back to Konoha, blue eyes bright as the midday sky, darkened in an instant, as if a storm had blown in. If we had more time, Itachi. What would a long separation do to them, when they had barely had time to get used to each other? Sasuke woke up in the middle of the night with a bad feeling. All day he had been imagining the tension thickening in the air. Naruto and Itachi, they were expecting something bad. When they thought he wasn't looking, they exchanged glances and grew gloomy. He left the room for water. It was steaming, the house was terribly stuffy. Passing the hall, he shuddered in surprise. By the window, in complete darkness, stood a short silhouette, in which Sasuke with difficulty recognized his brother's wife. Naruto? The girl shuddered and turned around. Why aren't you sleeping, Sasuke? Did something happen? Some kind of bad anxiety, the younger Uchiha shuddered. There will probably be a thunderstorm. I won't be able to fall asleep now. Indeed, there was no sign of drowsiness. It won't rain. Naruto turned on the light. Sit down, I need to talk to you. Sasuke's legs buckled. A bad feeling fell upon him, like his brother's heavy ammunition, which he once tried on without asking. He sat down at the table. Naruto sat straight upright. Her lips, bitten until they bled, stood out like a bright spot on her pale face. Tell me, if an armed uprising breaks out inside the hidden village, who will die first? She asked calmly, as if forcing him to remember the material from the lesson. Naruto, now? Sasuke groaned. Yes. Please. Her voice trembled on the last word. Nbu, Hokage's guard, Jonin, the younger Uchiha began to answer as if from a textbook. Memory snatched a small piece of a sunny street, where civilian children were playing, making noise, laughing. And their mothers, also civilians, were standing nearby. And for the first time Sasuke understood how flawed the information in the textbook was. After all, in an open confrontation, people without chakra would not have time to hide and escape from combat techniques. Children, civilian adults, he finished in shock. If this happens in Konoha, how will this threaten the village? Naruto continued to ask. Indifferently, like a doll. First of all, the defense of the village itself and the borderlands will weaken, which, in turn, will allow other settlements to strike or take advantage of our weakness, Sasuke thought again. In their class, they once talked about the kidnapping of the princess of the Hyuga clan, the Shai Hinata. Unverified information, it seems that she was captured for the Byakugan. The leader barely managed to fight it off, but his younger brother died in that battle. If the defense weakens, the Byakugan users will be the first to be sent on missions that they don't go on now. And that means the clan's perimeter defense will weaken, and any bandits will be able to steal the dojutsu. The same with the others. They can stand up for themselves, but for the entire village. And Sasuke didn't even take into account economic reasons, enterprises like the one their clan had. Naruto, where are you leading with this? The Uchiha clan is plotting a coup. They plan to kill the Hokage and the elders in order to put their own people in their place. There was no doubt in the blue eyes opposite. Itachi. Itachi was given the task of killing everyone involved in the conspiracy. Sasuke jumped up. Mom? Father? I have to warn them. They are involved, Sasuke. No. He recoiled. No, you're lying. I'll warn them, they'll be saved. He rushed to the door when a muffled sound stopped him. Slowly, very slowly, he turned around. Naruto was still sitting straight upright. Only her hands were clenched into fists, and a thin thread of blood was running down her chin. Naruto. His mentor Naruto. She bit her lip until it bled. Sasuke felt as if the support had been pulled out from under him. He sank helplessly to the floor. In his life, Itachi had always been an unattainable figure. The ideal older brother, a genius who graduated from the academy before anyone else and entered ANBU, the pride of his family. And then Naruto appeared. Mischievous, cheerful, and also a genius. And also steadfast, strong, self-confident. The younger Uchiha never doubted her strength, because he saw her and Itachi training together. But unlike her brother, she was much, much closer to Sasuke, simpler and more understandable. So a second support appeared in his life. Sasuke realized with horror that he was used to seeing a smile on his brother's wife's face, her constant cheerfulness. He considered her practically invulnerable. And he could not believe that she was now biting her lips until they bled to hold back the scream that was bursting out. At that moment, he noticed scarlet, reddened eyes. She cried a lot. And still tried to be strong. For him. For Itachi. Itachi, he looked up. What will happen to him? He will become a missing nin. Part of the criminal organization Akatsuki. For the first time, he saw a person break. Naruto lowered her head, her hair hid her face. Sasuke had a difficult choice. There, in the quarter, his brother was killing their parents and other members of the clan. Here, in the room, Naruto could break under the excessive burden of her, who was now, just like him, losing her family. He could not believe that his mother, his kind mother, participated, supported his father in the conspiracy. Wanted to sacrifice the entire village to help seize power. It did not fit with her gentle hands, kind smile, the smell of homemade cakes and rice. Mom, Dad. Itachi. Naruto, thoughts were spinning in a mad round dance. Sasuke did not know what to believe, what to grab onto. And in this chaos, Naruto's hunched, but not yet broken figure became his anchor. She never lied to him, never accused him, never reproached him. Her smile, her warm words supported him, helped him move on. His chest was torn apart by the thought that his parents were dead. And his brother. Sasuke looked at his hands. Could he have raised a weapon against his mom and dad to save the entire village? Naruto sat down next to him, hugged him around the neck, buried her face in his shoulder, and cried bitterly, sobbing, shaking with her whole body. Sasuke remembered that his brother's wife was the same age as him. And at the same time, so different from Sakura and Ino. Naruto cried, and Sasuke hugged her and looked out the window, which was also strangely blurring before his eyes. After all, their world was collapsing right before their eyes.